Hello, health heroes, and welcome to another session of the Forget Weight Loss Forever Project. I'm your host, Dr. Rudy Mueller, and you are here learning from the experts, and we are guiding you through the steps to find the underlying causes to your health and weight loss struggles, and teaching you how to implement real solutions that help you get real results. This next guest expert, I am so thrilled to have on this project. He is an amazing doc. He puts together quality information throughout his website and provides people with amazing solutions every single day. His name is Dr. David Jockers, and he is an author as well as online expert. So Dr. Jockers, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time, your expertise, and I'm really looking forward to getting this interview going.
Hey, Rudy, so great to be on with you and really applaud you for putting on a fantastic program like this.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you a part of it, Dr. Jockers. This is what makes this event so quality, is we have quality people presenting quality information and actionable content. So before we dive into this actionable content, before we dive into speaking more about this type of diet and this type of lifestyle change, just give me some context. What got you really into health? What got you started down this path to help people with wellness and weight loss?
Well, you know, growing up, I was always interested in performance. I was an athlete growing up. We were talking about playing baseball earlier. You know, I was a baseball player, I was an athlete, and just in a sense, just driven to perform at my highest level. And my mom actually was very interested in natural health. She was studying massage while I was growing up, and also naturopathy. And so she's actually now a naturopath, massage therapist. She also has an advanced degree in nursing and nurse practitioner. And so growing up, she was learning a lot about nutrition and things like that. And she would always try to make sure that we had vegetables at dinner time. And, you know, when I was a teenager, I really wasn't interested in eating healthy. However, she would, in a sense, give me benefits. She would say, you know, you should eat this steamed kale or whatever it was, because it's actually going to give you more energy. It's going to help your bones. It's going to help you be stronger. And, you know, when she said things like, help me be stronger, my eyes lit up and I'm like, really? So I would eat more of it. And that was kind of really like my initial taste into natural health. And then, you know, a couple of things happened. I watched my grandfather basically just, in a sense, wither away with metastatic cancer. And he went from being basically 6'3", about 200 pounds, to 106 pounds in 6 months with metastatic cancer. Just ate his body right up. And just watching him go through that and realizing, oh my gosh, that literally chronic disease just destroys people's lives. I was really the first person that I saw and witnessed and watched go through a miserable disease like that. Just broke my heart, and it really got me thinking. And then for me, in my early 20s, at the time I was a personal trainer. So I was into performance and fitness. And as a personal trainer, I was trying to help people with their nutrition. I was eating better than anybody that I knew and living, in a sense, to some degree, a healthier lifestyle than anybody I knew. And all of a sudden, I developed irritable bowel syndrome. And in a 3-month period of time, I went from 165 pounds down to 135 pounds. I had extreme cramping to where it would be hard to even get up out of bed. And in a sense, just I couldn't absorb any nutrients. I felt awful. And thank God, I found basically just through my own research and talking to other health experts, I found some nutritional changes I can make. And so started making some nutritional changes, started seeking out corrective chiropractic care, started getting my spine nerve system aligned up, went on a grain-free, low-carb diet, utilizing organic foods, the right nutrients, and I was able to regain my health. In about a 3 or 4 month period of time, I put that weight back on, got my energy back, was able to sleep at night again. I had trouble sleeping my whole entire life, and never really, I just thought it was normal. And all of a sudden, I just started sleeping great, waking up restored and energized, and I just got my life back. And so since then, I've just been on a mission to help as many people as possible regain their life, their health, and really do the things that God's called them and put them on the planet to do.
Yeah, I really love that. You know, it's all about releasing people from this burden of poor health and burden of, you know, not knowing what to do, so that they can start to see themselves blossom out of this situation that they may be in, and be able to reach what I call their full potential, or what you're saying is, what they're called to do, really get everything that we can out of each individual and every single person. It's a very powerful thing to be thinking about, and it's well beyond weight loss. And that's, it's one of the reasons that my company, the Limitless, it's all about getting slim, and you're about reaching your limitless potential. So what really do you see as being some of the major drivers or major problems of the obesity and poor health epidemic that hits our country as well as other westernized nations?
Well, there's a couple really big factors. And I would say to start with that, I would say that sugar consumption is at an all-time high. And so I was reading a statistic just the other day where the average individual is consuming 150 to 170 pounds of sugar every single year. 150 to 170 pounds. I mean, that's amazing. I'm 160 pounds. It's my whole body worth of sugar. And, most people I talk to, they'll tell me, well, that's not me. I'm not eating all that sugar. But what they fail to realize is that there's hidden sugar in a lot of the foods that they're consuming, and they don't even know it. For example, if you go to, there's a lot of popular smoothie places like Smoothie King, and the average smoothie has somewhere between like the small drinks, the 16 to 20 ounce drinks, which are not the most popular. I used to actually, when I was 20, when I was in my undergrad, I actually worked at a Smoothie King, and I would make these, and it was just constant. It was just all sugar. We were just loading it up in there. The average small smoothie contains 40 to 80 grams of sugar in a 16 to 20 ounce drink. That right there is 4 to 8 tablespoons. And most people, they go and they get a smoothie for lunch, and they think they just got a healthy drink. And they fail to realize that they're just loading their system up with sugar. And when we put that sugar in our body, we spike something called insulin, this hormone called insulin. And insulin is really a superhero hormone because it comes out, and its job is to take sugar out of the bloodstream and put it into the muscle and tissue cells of the body. And we know that elevated blood sugar is toxic. We see people like, for example, people that have uncontrolled diabetes, and the sugar destroys their nerve endings. It destroys their optic nerves. So they develop optic neuritis. They develop peripheral neuropathy. Sometimes they lose the feeling of their extremities. It's disastrous. And so in order to prevent that, the body takes the sugar. It produces this hormone called insulin to take the sugar out of the bloodstream, again, where it can be really toxic if it's left in high doses, puts it into the cells. And so the only unfortunate thing is when insulin is high, your body goes into fat storage mode. So as long as insulin is elevated, your body can't burn fat effectively. On top of that, it promotes inflammation. And there's this chronic spiral of inflammation that takes place that, in a sense, creates insulin resistance, so the body's inability to effectively utilize insulin, and creates more and more inflammation, which leads to more fat gain. And so there's this whole problem, and it really starts with just the sugar consumption. So you talked about like hidden sources of sugar. Well, smoothies and shakes are one of the top ones. Another one is yogurt. And so growing up, my mom used to think that the Dannon yogurts were really healthy for us. And so we would get the Dannon yogurts with the fruit on the bottom. We didn't realize is that was high fructose corn syrup. And, at that period of time in the 90s, we thought corn was healthy because it was a vegetable, that's going to be healthy for us. We didn't realize that was 20 to 30 grams of added sugar. And today, a lot of people will continue to consume yogurt, and health-conscious individuals typically go for something like a Greek yogurt because it is lower in sugar, and typically they're unsweetened. But even an unsweetened Greek yogurt contains 6 to 9 grams of sugar, which is really equivalent to a full tablespoon of sugar. Now, at any given time in our bloodstream, we should have about a teaspoon of sugar circulating. So when we consume even a tablespoon of sugar, our body has really got to produce a lot of insulin to get that sugar, lower the blood sugar, which again, that insulin promotes inflammation and fat storage. And somebody that's already having metabolic problems, obviously they're going to cause more issues. And so, you think about it, it's like we've got protein bars, superfood bars. Almost every health conscious person I know carries these things around, or at least, when I was in graduate school, it was like we all had these protein bars, these superfood bars. We thought they were great, but you look at the back of them and they're all loaded with date sugar, honey, all different types of stuff that's, in a sense, more and more sugar. Green juices, Odwalla juices, You can find these even today at conventional grocery stores. Most of them have like apple juice or pear juice as the primary juice that's in them. And they do have some superfoods. They do have some greens, but with the greens, you're getting 20 to 30 grams of sugar. And that sugar is an anti-nutrient that actually robs you of key trace minerals, different antioxidants, robs you of things like magnesium and zinc, creates more inflammation in your body. So you're really doing more damage than good by drinking those green juices. You have things like dried fruit. So, a lot of people are carrying around granolas or consuming granola for breakfast or trail mixes that have dried fruit in them. And the dried fruit is, again, another hidden source of sugar that's spiking their blood sugar, spiking insulin, and putting their body into a fat storage, sugar-burning mode that's going to lead to metabolic problems. And for individuals that are genetically susceptible, it's going to lead to them being overweight and possibly obese.
I really think you hit on one of those foundational points where, we're thinking about good or bad. And I really don't know that there is such thing as good or bad. When people say yogurt, what do you automatically think? Most people would say, oh, yogurt's good for you. What about orange juice? Well, orange juice is good for you. Well, what about this superfood bar? Oh, it's superfood. It's got to be good for you. And that's not always the case. You really have to be very careful in looking at these ingredients, especially in these foods that are somewhat processed. I really believe that we definitely need to get back to the whole foods, these things that we would naturally occur in our diet, and eat foods that naturally ate their natural diet. Do you follow that, and do you believe that too, Dr. Jockers?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, the more that we can go back to nature and eat real foods, the better off we're going to be.
So early on, when you became sick, what type of diet were you following? And then what kind of switch did you make in your diet to gain the weight? And is it something that you recommend for people that are trying to lose weight?
Well, I'll tell you, back when I got sick in my early 20s, I was following more of a vegetarian-based diet. I would consume dairy products, but for the most part, my diet was consisting of things like soy burgers. I was doing a lot of soy, whole grains, lots of whole grains. And I had fish, but I really, other than fish, I wasn't eating animal products. At that time, I thought that was the healthiest diet. And unfortunately, it caused a lot of different issues, a lot of inflammation in my body, obviously damaged my gut. And so the nutrition plan that really helped me and what I've seen help my clients the most, and I used a variety of different nutritional plans based around the genetic aspects of the individual, based around what they've tried in the past, based around responses they're having. But what I find that works the best with people that are trying to lose weight is a cyclic ketogenic diet. And to really break down a ketogenic diet, and this is really what I follow myself, is it's a very low carbohydrate, moderate protein. So it's not a high protein diet. It's a high fat, particularly good fat diet. And it really trains an individual's metabolism to run off of fatty acids. So most people walking around in society are burning sugar as their primary fuel, and they're craving sugar. They need to eat every couple hours because their blood sugar is going up and down. And when their blood sugar goes down, the body stimulates a stress response, and stress hormone comes out. And part of that response is, in a sense, signaling to the brain, hey, I need food. I'm feeling famished. So these are individuals that are constantly hungry and depending upon a constant supply of fuel. Whereas when somebody becomes fat adapted, when they're breaking down and metabolizing fat as their primary energy source, the fat breaks down into something called ketones, which it's produced by the liver. And basically the ketones are a great energy source for your brain and for your tissue cells of your body. And you're no longer starving all the time. In fact, you have great satiety, meaning that you feel really satisfied and you're not constantly hungry. And you don't have a lot of sugar cravings or really food cravings in general. You feel really good. Your brain feels really good. It's phenomenal for mental, emotional balance. Excellent. It's tremendous benefits. In fact, it's been shown to dramatically improve insulin sensitivity. So we talked about insulin as this hormone that comes out, secreted by our pancreas, comes out and takes sugar out of the bloodstream, puts it into the cells. We want our body to be as sensitive as possible, our cells to be as sensitive as possible to insulin, so we need less insulin produced. By doing that, we put less stress on our pancreas, meaning that our pancreas has to produce less energy to produce the insulin. On top of that, we promote less inflammation. we're going to promote more inflammation based around more insulin being secreted. So by being very sensitive, it helps put our body into more of a fat-burning mode and an anti-inflammatory mode. It's very powerful. Okay, the nutrition plan also helps, like a ketogenic diet improves what we call mitochondrial biogenesis. And what that means is that within every cell of our body, we've got something called a mitochondria, which is an energy-producing organelle within the cell. And the mitochondria, in a sense, produces all the energy for the cell. And so we want to have a lot of mitochondria, and we want them working very efficiently. Ketogenic diet improves the production and the utilization of the mitochondria as we're producing more energy through what we call aerobic metabolism or oxygen-based metabolism. So very key for that. And the more effective our mitochondria are functioning, the more that we lower our risk of developing degenerative diseases, things like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, dementia, autoimmune diseases. All of these things are risk for those types of chronic disease goes down significantly when we have healthy, good functioning mitochondria. And again, ketogenic diet, very good for improving that. And it also helps improve lean body mass. So it actually helps improve our lean muscle, right? In fact, one of the things when somebody's on a diet like this, again, low carb, moderate protein, high good fat diet, they actually have higher levels of circulating leucine. And leucine is a branched chain amino acid that, in a sense, triggers our body to be in more of an anabolic mode, meaning we're going to preserve muscle mass. So it helps preserve muscle mass. And the better we preserve our own muscle mass, the better our body burns fat. So muscle helps us burn fat. Most people are familiar with that if they exercise, they do strength training, things like that, they're going to improve their metabolism. Well, being on a low carb, moderate protein, high good fat diet preserves our lean body mass and therefore improves our body's ability to burn fat and stay strong the way, that we want to, our kind of our desired physique. So with this sort of a diet, what we're doing is we're loading up on good fats, things like coconut oil, avocados, olive oil, olives, grass-fed butter or ghee, which is a clarified butter. We've been told butter is bad for us, but actually it's not true at all. In fact, butter is one of the best carriers for high-quality antioxidants, carotenoids, like vitamin A, all the different segments of your carotenoid family. It's loaded with that. It's got conjugated linoleic acid, which is incredible for your metabolism and great for insulin sensitivity. And grass-fed butter is one of the most important foods you can be consuming on a regular basis if you really want to burn fat effectively, as long as, again, you keep your sugar and your carbs low. So we want to load up on those good fats. We want a lot of antioxidants, lots of clean vegetables, non-starchy vegetables. So things like cucumbers, celery, broccoli, cauliflower, all of our cruciferous family, dark green leafies like spinach, kale, all those types of things. They're non-starchy, so they're low in carbohydrates and high in nutrients. And then we want low glycemic fruit like lemons and limes, berries. Those are fantastic. Lots of herbs like turmeric, ginger, basil, oregano, thyme. So the more antioxidants we can take in a sense, the more nutrients we take in without taking in a lot of carbohydrate in the form of sugar or starch, the better off we're going to be. And those antioxidants really help our body fight against oxidative stress, which is, in a sense, the marker of aging. So the more oxidative stress, or you think about it like rusting in our body, like we watch metal rust, it's the same mechanism in our body. The more of this oxidative stress we encounter, the more inflammation our body produces, the faster we age and the faster we move towards chronic degenerative diseases. So getting these antioxidants in our body without the sugar or a minimal amount of sugar or carbohydrate, the better off we're going to be. And that's really what a high-quality ketogenic diet does for us. And then the cyclic component is just adding in a little bit more carbs once or twice a week. So maybe a little bit more berries, or perhaps like doing like a beet juice like I like. Beets are loaded with nutrients, particularly things that help with DNA reproduction, such as methylating agents, B vitamins that are in the beets, trimethylglycine, things like that are really powerful for detox and protecting our genome, but they're also higher in sugar. So I like to do like a beet juice once a week. I might add in a sweet potato once a week or something like that. So usually about twice a week, I'll cycle out of ketosis with a little bit higher carbs, and then I'll cycle back in by doing 2 or 3 days real low carb. And I found that to be very effective for me. And using a program like that, I've seen individuals lose. I mean, one individual lost 115 pounds in a year following a similar style of nutrition plan.
So really the big point that I hear you saying is that what we want to do is we want to switch the mitochondria from burning sugar to burning fat. And one of the ways that we can do that is by doing this cyclical ketogenic diet or doing a ketogenic diet. And the other benefit from doing a ketogenic diet or eating more fats, decreasing the carbohydrates, is that we are also getting mitochondrial biogenesis or biogenesis, where we're getting more mitochondria, and the more higher quantity of mitochondria, therefore making fat burning more efficient.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That mitochondrial biogenesis, most people have trouble grasping that concept. But, once you start really understanding biology and how our body works, that is one of the most powerful mechanisms. If we can have daily practices that improve the function and, in a sense, the quality and the quantity of our mitochondria, we're just going to have such incredible quality of life and give us the greatest chance for a high level of longevity.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting to see where the ketogenic diet originated and now where it is today. I mean, ketogenic diets originally came in because they were a good tool to reduce epileptic seizures in children, and it worked. In a majority of the time, it really helped people reduce those seizures, the occurrence and the severity. Until pharmaceutical companies came in and developed drugs, then ketogenic diet kind of fell off the map. But as we're starting to study the ketogenic diet and these low-carbohydrate, high-fat diets more and more, we're seeing benefits in neurodegenerative diseases, like you mentioned, with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. We're seeing it with weight loss, reversing of type 2 diabetes and metabolic syndrome, and even in cancers, metastatic cancers, reducing the size and the progression of cancer. So it's pretty fascinating and amazing diet that really, it just shows when you start to address some of the underlying issues where a lot of that can be coming from the diet, how much of a change and impact you can have. So I think a lot of people listening to this conversation or this interview are stuck in this paradigm and this thought process of calories in, calories out, exercise more or exercise less. How do we, start to implement the ketogenic diet? Do we have to be counting calories? Do we have to be counting anything?
Yeah, it's a great question. I get this question all the time from my clients, and I'm not a fan of calorie counting. Now, a lot of people, when they're doing the ketogenic diet, in fact, there's all different types of apps out there and programs out there that help you to count your macronutrients, your fat, your carbohydrate content, things like that. But really what I like to do is, and there's a lot of ways to measure. You can test blood sugar, you can test ketones, blood ketones, urine ketones, all different types of things. I just really go off of how I feel. There is an incredible level of mental, emotional stability that you have when you're on a ketogenic diet, you're in stable ketosis. That feels amazing. And so what I do is I base my meals around these good fats, right? So I don't intentionally consume carbohydrates other than perhaps once or twice a week, usually spaced out, okay? Certain periods of time I might consume a little bit more than others, and I'll cycle out of ketosis for a period of time. The way I get back in is typically I do intermittent fasting, where I'll go something like 16 to 18 hours without any food other than lots of water. So lots of hydration, sometimes some herbal tea. Sometimes I'll put coconut oil in my herbal tea or MCT oil or something along those lines. That can be a more effective way, a more advanced strategy to get into ketosis using things like coconut oil and MCT oil, but oftentimes just nothing at all. And what happens is my body burns up stored sugar, glycogen, and in a sense, it goes into a partial starvation mode where it starts to produce more ketones. And as your body gets healthier, you'll start to get better and better at producing these ketones, which help create stability in my blood sugar. And the key is you got to really stay hydrated. That's extremely important with this. If you're dehydrated, your body's going to produce a lot more stress hormone, and therefore you're going to constantly have blood sugar elevation, and then your body's going to use the sugar and your blood sugar is going to go down, and your body's going to secrete more stress hormone, and you're going to feel awful and irritable and have all different types of problems, and you're going to end up going into adrenal fatigue. So to avoid that, stay real hydrated. You got to make sure that you're moving your bowels effectively. So there's strategies in order to do that. But usually I'll do some sort of intermittent fasting, and then my first meal is usually some sort of just a really good fat. So maybe it's guacamole with maybe some cucumbers or something along those lines. Or I'll do a protein shake with an avocado in it. So the avocado's got good fats. I'll load it up with coconut oil or MCT oil in there.
So just
a little bit of high quality proteen.
Sorry to interrupt you, but just mention what MCT oil is.
MCT oil is medium chain triglycerides. And so it's basically it's made from coconut oil, but coconut oil only has about 15% MCTs in the form of caprylic acid and capric acid. Whereas MCT oil is, in a sense, just made up of those two fatty acids, these 8 and 10 carbon fatty acids, caprylic and capric acid. And so basically it produces ketones at a high level. So they go right into our system, produce ketones immediately, and it's a really effective way to get your body into ketosis. So you can find MCT oil online, pretty easy to find nowadays. And so anyways, I'll put that into different protein shakes, or I might put it into an herbal tea or even organic coffee to help produce ketones. So do that usually first meal, and then I may have like in the evening. So I usually will do that around 1 o'clock or so. And then around 6 o'clock, I'll have a healthy, high quality meal with some sort of a healthy protein, animal-based protein like wild-caught salmon, organic poultry, could be grass-fed beef, could be something along those lines. I'll have a ton of vegetables, maybe a big salad or a bunch of steamed vegetables like steamed cauliflower or Brussels sprouts or broccoli. The vegetables will be steamed, and then I'll melt grass-fed butter or ghee on them. And so again, we get the great fats that are in the grass-fed butter and the ghee along with the antioxidants that are in there. So I've got that. Then I put herbs on everything, and I'll also squeeze some fresh lemon, put some apple cider vinegar on everything. The lemon and the apple cider vinegar helps pre-metabolize the food. So there's enzymes in there that help to, in a sense, start the digestive process. Also, the organic acids do that. It also helps take stress off of my body's digestive system because, again, the digestive process is already starting before I even put the food in my body. Lemon and lime and apple cider vinegar also have some antioxidants in them that, again, help prevent against oxidative stress in my system. And it tastes good. I mean, most of us like things like lemon pepper chicken and stuff like that. So I've got the lemon or lime or apple cider vinegar on there. I've got lots of herbs. I really like Italian herbs like basil, oregano, thyme. I often will use a sea vegetable like kelp, which is very rich in iodine, very good for the thyroid. As well as, in a sense, just very good for hormone metabolism, iodine is. And I really typically only recommend getting iodine from sea vegetable, high-quality sea vegetable. So using kelp on a regular basis can be one of the best ways. Kelp also has a ton of chlorophyll, which is really good for blood purification and detoxification. So I'll put that on my food, put some good healthy salts on there, some pink salts like Himalayan sea salt, and I'll consume that, and it just tastes amazing. And I don't consume like an extra amount of meat unless I had a really intense workout. So like today I did squats in the gym. And so that was more of an intense workout. So I want a little bit more protein. If I had more of a rest day where all I did was walk or see patients in my clinic or something along those lines, then I'm going to consume more of a moderate amount of protein. So that's a key thing to remember. If you did not work out at a high intensity, you really don't need a high amount of protein. So usually a piece of meat about the size of my fist works great on my rest days. On my non-rest days, usually I'll have a double portion of meat when I do an intense workout for in a sense, just muscle recovery to help me recover from the stress and to help my body utilize those amino acids to build new healthy tissue. So that's kind of what a typical diet looks like on a ketogenic diet. You can also do things like you can even make green juices just without using any fruits. So you use things like lemons and limes, as well as cucumber, bok choy, celery, which are very low in carbs, but produce a lot of juice when you're making the green juice. And you combine that with dark green leafies like spinach and kale and watercress and parsley and cilantro and things like that. And now you've got this powerful green drink that's loaded with chlorophyll and phytonutrients, very low in sugar, and really supports your body's ability to cleanse and detoxify. So, this is kind of, in a sense, typically how I eat on a regular basis. And in my ketogenic diet online nutrition program, the meal plans are similar in structure to what I'm talking about with this.
And what I love and what I'm hearing you talk about this is it's all whole foods. It's all natural foods. I mean, besides maybe the MCT oil is a little processed, but everything is coming from real food. And you're clearing out all of the nasty toxins, all of the overconsumption of carbohydrates, the processed food. I mean, all of those things, that the negative aspects of eating those types of things that come with it. And then you're also implementing intermittent fasting, which is one of the things that we touch on throughout this summit. So I really think that this plan that you're talking about really, really will work well for the majority of people. And then maybe you need to start getting into counting a few different types of things as if you ever hit a roadblock or something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And really the way that you know that you're in this stable fat burning mode is probably the most important thing is just how you feel. You should feel very mentally stable and alert. Like I know when I'm getting fatigued or just can't think straight, it's a sign that my blood sugar's gone low and my body isn't using ketones well for energy, and therefore stress hormone is kicked up. And so there are periods of time, especially like around the holidays, where I might have a higher carbohydrate diet during that period of time where I start to notice that. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, though, when you start to get in touch with your body, you start to realize that you can kind of cycle back into ketosis utilizing the right strategies, in a sense, getting right back on board with this.
Like intermittent fasting.
Like intermittent fasting, like using MCT oil in your tea or your coffee. If you have extreme adrenal fatigue, that needs to be corrected first before I would attempt a ketogenic diet. There are certain cases, Rudy, I'm sure you know this, there are certain cases where I don't recommend a ketogenic diet. And that would be individuals that have extreme adrenal fatigue because they just can't handle, their body can't utilize the ketones effectively. And so their body just goes into panic mode when their blood sugar drops. So those individuals we need to work on correcting the adrenal fatigue first. Then down the road, usually it takes a 1 to 3 month process to do that. Then down the road, we can start working on applying an appropriate ketogenic diet, a cyclic ketogenic diet for those individuals to get the added benefits that come, like the mitochondrial biogenesis that come with the ketogenic approach. That's one of the keys. Also, women that have like a lot of menstrual cycle issues, endometriosis, things like that, sometimes ketogenic diet can be challenging for them. Again, usually an underlying reason is they have adrenal fatigue that needs to be addressed. Same thing with people with poor thyroid function. Oftentimes, one of the underlying factors is adrenal fatigue that needs to be addressed first. So those are certain special population groups that I don't get started with the ketogenic diet right away. We work on stabilizing the adrenals, and then that would be a more advanced step. After the adrenals are stable and the individual's feeling better, then we talk about, hey, the benefits of a ketogenic diet and starting to move in that direction.
So really what you're saying is the litmus test to be able to figure out if this diet is working for you is, obviously watching your weight and seeing if the weight is reducing, if you burning more fat. But the other thing is really just getting a gauge on your feelings. Now, are there any other types of strategies to be able to implement to know whether or not a ketogenic diet is working? Any like home testing or lab tests?
Yeah, it definitely is. And there's several ways. In fact, I've got a whole article on my website that talks about how to measure your ketones. And I talk about 5 ways to measure your ketones. And so the first way, which is the most popular way people are doing this, is really doing urine ketones. And research has shown it's really not that effective. So it's not a strategy that I typically recommend. All it really tells us is that your body's producing ketones, doesn't really tell us how well you're utilizing the ketones. So that's one way. The blood ketone meter is much more effective, and that's what you were talking about. The only challenge is, the reality is those test strips are like $4 a piece. Right. So, if you were to test every day for a month, that's $120. And then the meter itself is $30. So, it's going to definitely get pricey. You can test blood sugar, which is actually a lot cheaper. And what you'll notice with blood sugar is that, like, in a sense, if you're not in ketosis and your blood sugar drops under about 75 to 80 milligrams per deciliter, and you're not in ketosis, your body will start to tremble. You'll start to have these hypoglycemic effects where you'll feel real irritable and grumpy and tired. And in a sense, your body's sounding the alarm saying, we're starving, we need food immediately. And that's when you know, hey, I'm not in stable ketosis. However, if you were to test your fasting glucose and it was under 70 milligrams per deciliter, so let's say 55, 60 milligrams per deciliter, but you felt really good, that's a sign that you're in stable ketosis. If you were not in ketosis and your blood sugar was that low, your body would be in massive panic mode. You might even be passed out on the ground. And so it would be extreme emergency for your system. So the reality is that that's one much more cost-effective way. A typical blood sugar strip is more like a little bit less than $1 a piece, $1 a strip. So, you could certainly test your blood sugar. A lot of people are familiar with that. And doing that on a regular basis as, right now as we speak, a lot of people are listening are probably doing that. And that works great. Another way would be, and this is a little bit less invasive because you don't have to prick your finger and get all these little tiny cuts on your finger, would be to use a breath meter, right? So there are breath meters that work fantastic. And so the major breath meter is called the Ketogenics, and it's a little pricey at first. I think it's a one-time expense of about $150.
Yeah,
but once you get it, what's that, Rudy?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, $150. But once you get it, you just set it up, and it's basically attaches to your computer, and it keeps track of your readings. And so you'll be able to just breathe into it, and it's testing your respiratory ketones, which is your acetone levels, and it's giving you a reading off of that. And that's a pretty accurate measure, and it's non-invasive, and it's just a one-time cost. So, that's a great approach. And the last approach, which is really the one that I follow mostly, is, again, just really basing it off of how I feel. Obviously, it's subjective, but in general, when you're following this plan, like, for example, when you're in ketosis, you almost feel better the longer you fast. Like, it's, in a sense, you're going 16, 18 hours, and it's like, wow, you just, all of a sudden, you just start feeling really, really, really good. It's a classic sign that you're in ketosis and that you're doing great. Okay. Now, a couple key things to really stay in stay at that level. We talked about hydration. That's so important. I see a lot of people do this wrong, where they get dehydrated and their blood, and then what happens is their stress hormones spike because their body's dehydrated and the body goes into a panic mode, and in a sense they bonk. And so really staying hydrated is very, very key, and also adding a lot of good salts. So if you're fasting, you may need to add some salts to your water, because when you're in ketosis, your body excretes more sodium. So you need those electrolytes, and that keeps your energy really high. Or again, when you're eating your meals, adding a lot of good pink salts and things like sea vegetable, like kelp, can be a really, really great way to keep your energy high, in a sense, to give you an added advantage, to keep your body into ketosis and to keep stress hormones down and at bay.
I think you really hit on another key point there is, it's really important to not only stay hydrated, but to be putting in minerals. And you talked about pink salt as being one of those sources to getting in some good minerals. And when you decrease the glucose in your blood and you decrease the insulin effect, your body starts to be able to secrete sodium. And so we see some major changes in people's blood pressure. So if you are starting to take on this type of diet and you are on those types of medications, it's something that you need to be careful of. If you're on a glucose medication that's meant to lower it, you need to be monitoring your glucose. If you're on a blood pressure medication, you need to be monitoring your blood pressure as you go through this.
Yeah, absolutely. When we're on a higher carbohydrate diet, like most people in America, our body, our kidneys, basically, we just, in a sense, we reabsorb sodium. And that's why we have the issues, in a sense, with cellulite and swelling and things like that when we start to have metabolic disease. And so as we transition into this low-carb diet, now our body actually excretes sodium and the minerals. So we need added amounts. And this is, again, a big issue because most of us have been taught we should be on a low, like salt is bad and we should be on a low sodium diet. But not true. Not if we're on a low carbohydrate diet. You want to make sure you're adding in the sodium. You want to make sure you're getting it from foods. Some of the best sodium containing foods, and they really are great in all your major electrolytes, are going to be things like celery, cucumbers, bok choy, sea vegetable. These are great. So doing a greens drink where you, in a sense, put in a cucumber in there, put in a couple stalks of celery, put in a couple stalks of bok choy, along with, let's say, a lemon, and then put in some dark green leafy vegetables, maybe a little bit of ginger or turmeric root. Fantastic way to get a lot of good quality sodium and electrolytes to keep your energy really high and to help with, in a sense, just overall detoxification, and great thing to do throughout the day.
Yeah, if we've touched on a lot of great things here, a lot of positives about the ketogenic diet, but are there any drawbacks? Are there any negatives if somebody's getting started out on a ketogenic diet? Should they expect to feel worse before they feel better?
Yeah, so sometimes, especially if somebody is fighting through a metabolic disease, it's going to take a little bit of time to get into ketosis, and it's going to take a little time for your body to switch from sugar burning to fat burning. So a couple things that somebody will notice, they may feel more tired in the beginning. If they're an athlete or if they're exercising regularly, they may notice that their performance drops at first. And depending on the individual, usually the adaptation period is anywhere from 3 days to possibly 2 to 3 weeks. So you should notice, just in a sense, an overall just a lessening of energy in the beginning. You may notice a little bit more sugar cravings in the beginning. And really, that's why there's an advantage to working with a set program or working with a health professional that's trained people on how to go through this. So when you start adding in things like MCT oil or coconut oil during your fasting periods or between meals, you start to notice less of these, less blood sugar imbalances. You don't feel quite as bad. You just notice that you feel better. Also, doing things to help stimulate bowel movements. A lot of people, you see, when we eat food, it naturally stimulates peristalsis or muscle contraction in your intestines. And so if somebody's doing an intermittent fast, by not consuming food, oftentimes their bowels don't get the necessary stimulation they need for muscle contraction. So doing some different things like using maybe a smooth move or laxative tea can be really helpful, or doing some things to help stimulate the vagus nerve, such as gargling or singing or something along those lines can actually be very beneficial. Also, you can do things like chia seeds, getting some good fiber, putting that into a shake during your building phase or the period of time when you are consuming food. That can be really helpful to help stimulate bowel movements. I would say that's one of the biggest issues that I see. A lot of times people are getting constipated and they're not moving toxins through their system effectively, so they feel really bad. That, along with not getting the electrolytes that we talked about, those are very critical factors that we want to make sure that we're applying. So definitely do that. And when you start to do things like intermittent fasting, just start by adding an hour each day. So you might start by doing like a 12-hour fast between dinner and breakfast the next day. And that's really what I call the simple fast. And the simple fast allows you to get 4 hours to complete your digestion from dinner, and then 8 hours for your liver to go through a full detoxification cycle. That should be the minimum. We should all be doing a 12-hour fast every single day, nothing but water and possibly herbs and electrolytes during that 12-hour fast. Then you may feel good enough to do a 14-hour fast where you just go 2 extra hours. So if you finish dinner at 7 p.m., you might go till 9 a.m. before consuming any food with calories the next day. If you feel good with that, you may go up to a 16-hour fast, right? And that's really typically a really good sticking point for most people. Now, you may decide, hey, I feel great doing this. I might want to go up to 18 or 20-hour fast. Okay, usually don't recommend it for people right off the bat. It's better to start going slowly. But as you start to get more in touch with your body and you start to really know what ketosis feels like, you may decide to take a longer fast. And as long as you're staying hydrated and getting the minerals and antioxidants that your body needs, you can continue to get more and more benefits from, in a sense, a deeper fast.
One of the most common questions I get, Doc, is how quickly should I expect to see change? How quickly should I begin to see the weight loss and the fat start to come off? How quick is that going to happen? And then, it's really dependent on the individual and what's going on with them. I get that. But on average, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so typically people start to drop weight very quickly. Now, if you go, let's say, a month following a ketogenic diet and you're not losing weight, then we haven't really got to the underlying root cause. Oftentimes there's issues with gut dysbiosis. A lot of individuals that are overweight have things like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth.
And what types of things would they be experiencing if that was the case?
They may have digestive issues. It's weird because they may have digestive issues. They may have issues like acid reflux is common. They may have gas, bloating, cramping, different things like that with their digestive system. Constipation is probably one of the most critical things to keep under control with things like SIBO.
Right.
Sometimes they don't even notice any major symptoms with it. Sometimes their symptoms are in their skin. They have things like eczema, okay, but no major digestive issues. So typically, a good functional medicine practitioner, if you're on this low carb, high good fat diet, and you're following it the way you're supposed to, but you're not seeing results, definitely getting some functional testing can be really helpful to rule out things like an H. pylori infection, SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Those are two of the most common. Adrenal fatigue, like we talked about, and having that adrenal fatigue being one of the underlying problems with then a thyroid disorder. So we see a lot of times people are not converting T4 to T3 well because they have adrenal fatigue. And so their body is, in a sense, producing a lot of reverse T3. And reverse T3 is blocking T3 uptake with the cells. And we're not getting the desired thyroid, the metabolism boosting effect of the thyroid. And so in a sense, that individual starts to deal with hypothyroidism issues. They have very low energy. Oftentimes they start losing hair in their eyebrows as well as in their scalp. So they start to notice that they're cold. Constipation, issues like that. So these are things, if you notice that you aren't losing weight within a month doing a well-formulated ketogenic diet, then you definitely want to get some functional testing to look for one of these root causes.
So now we're doing a well-formulated ketogenic diet. We're eating quality fats like coconut oil and avocado and olives and olive oil, and we're starting to dive into protein, and we're eating quality animal-based protein. Is there any other type of protein sources that you supplement with or you add in besides that coming from an animal source?
Yeah, absolutely. So like doing protein powders, I'm a huge fan of protein powders because it's like they're pre-digested amino acids. So I'm a big fan of non-denatured whey protein if somebody doesn't have an immune intolerance to whey protein.
Right.
Whey protein is rich in branched-chain amino acids, which, again, help produce in a sense, they help preserve lean body tissue, which helps with metabolism. If they can't handle that, then I'm a big fan of pea protein. Pea protein is very good for our microbiome, so our intestinal bacterial makeup, and it really helps to strengthen microbes that help us burn fat for fuel. So pea protein can be very, very good. So using a good quality protein powder, as well as the animal sources like wild-caught salmon, grass-fed beef, pasture-raised eggs, if we don't have a immune sensitivity to eggs, of course, pastured poultry, those types of things are going to be our best protein sources.
Yeah, so to touch on the carbohydrate perspective, so what we're talking about is we're eating green leafy vegetables, we're eating brassica vegetables or cruciferous vegetables like cauliflower, broccoli, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, bok choy. We're adding in things like celery and cucumber and a lot of other high fiber vegetables, and that high fiber is going to act twofold. One, it's going to slow the response of glucose being absorbed in the system, therefore you won't get any spikes in blood sugar, or you'll be less likely to experience them. And then also the fiber will help feed the bacteria in the gut, the good beneficial bacteria, and help your microbiome. Are there any other types of foods that you like to add into your specific diet?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I'm a big fan of adding a couple of extra things too, like, for example, broccoli sprouts. I tell all of my clients to get a container of broccoli sprouts from their health food store, or to grow them themselves if they're able to, and sprinkle that on their salads every day. Broccoli sprouts are one of the best detoxification sources, and they're simple and easy to get. Also, fermented foods, adding in some things like a little bit of kimchi, or sauerkraut can be great. Most health food stores have these. You can also make them at home. So adding in a scoop or two of that or more, if you're able to tolerate it at night with dinner, can be very effective for digestion, nutrient assimilation, and getting a lot of detoxification compounds into your body.
So you touched on the size of the meat should be about the size of the palm of your hand, and obviously this is going to vary per individual. You're going to have a lot of vegetables on your plate. You're going to load them up with healthy fats like olive oil or grass-fed butter or coconut oil, and then start to add in maybe some other enzymes or like some acids or like citric acid from the lemons and limes, or maybe a little bit of apple cider vinegar to start that pre-digestion process. But what really, when you're looking at your plate, what does your plate look like? How's it portioned out?
Yep, exactly. So I might have, in a sense, about a third of my plate meat and 2/3 vegetables. And then I've got good fats on the vegetables. So I've got the grass-fed butter. Somebody could also put olive oil if they wanted that. Or you could have like a side of guacamole and dip the vegetables in that. Or dice up avocado and put it on the vegetables. So I want something along those lines. And that way I'm getting a lot of high-quality antioxidants, super nutrients, and a lot of fiber. And again, a moderate protein. Too much protein will actually create sugar in our bloodstream. So the protein, we only need a certain amount. So again, about the size of your fist should be great. And that'll help your body get the amino acids it needs for healing and repair without going through a process called gluconeogenesis, where the body takes protein and turns it into sugar. If we consume a lot of protein, we're going to turn it into sugar, and that's going to throw us out of ketosis and, again, put us into sugar-burning mode.
Well, I really appreciate all the detail that you've gone into here, Dr. Jockers. You've definitely gone above and beyond with providing quality content here. But I want to know if there's anything else that you'd like to add, whether it's about a ketogenic diet or about people, giving tips to people who are attempting to lose weight. If you have any other advice that you would want to provide them.
I'll just say I do have a couple extra tips as well, especially with ketogenic diet. We talked about obviously making sure we're moving our bowels. That's a critical factor. We talked about using MCT oil. A couple other things, really making sure that we keep our stress down. Chronic stress will throw somebody out of ketosis faster than anything else. So really being on an anti-inflammatory diet also has to do with controlling our breathing. So really working on breathing exercises, working on mental exercises to help us, in a sense, deal with the unexpected that gets thrown at us during the day. So, having a routine in the morning where we train our mind to be able to handle stress, and really, like I have an article on my website that goes over how to thrive under stress, right? And it's just kind of this mentality of I'm ready for the unexpected, I'm confident in who I am, and I'm ready to take on the challenges of the day. And knowing that the challenges make us stronger. So really working on how we perceive stress is a critical factor to keeping our blood sugar under control. There's also things that you can do. You can use adaptogenic herbs, things like ashwagandha, rhodiola, cordyceps, ginseng. So these adaptogenic herbs, these are herbs that have adapted to extremes in temperature oftentimes, right? Like rhodiola grows in Siberia, where it faces extreme cold. And it's adapted through these compounds called terpenes in order to give it this ability to, in a sense, thrive in a really hostile environment. And then it passes those on to us when we consume it. So when we're taking in these sorts of adaptogenic herbs, that helps us with keeping stress under control. And one other thing was really sleeping well, just prioritizing sleep. So I ideally recommend getting to sleep by no later than 11 p.m. as much as possible, being in bed by around 10 o'clock. Really working to try to get 7 to for some individuals, 9 hours of sleep. For me, I seem to run well on 7 to 8, but some people, especially if you have adrenal fatigue, you're definitely gonna need to bump it up, get in around 9 hours. That high quality sleep will reduce sugar cravings, reduce inflammation in your body, improve satiety levels, meaning that you're satisfied and you're able to fast longer, and just control your blood sugar very, very effectively. So I recommend doing that. You want to keep your room cool. My wife and I, we keep our room around 60 to 65 degrees in that temperature range. And that is very, very powerful for stimulating deep restorative sleep. Having circulating air, so like an overhead fan or a side fan blowing on you, can be very effective, helping you oxygenate and helping, again, just help you feel cool to get into more of a deeper sleep. And also using a sleep mask can be very, very powerful. So just something that would cover your eyes, in a sense, creating a pitch black room, which is hard to do in real life. You've got to get specific shading, turn off all the lights, block everything out. But using a sleep mask can be a much simpler way of creating a extremely dark environment, which will help your body secrete more melatonin, which will help you get a deeper, more restorative sleep. So those are definitely some tips to help balance your blood sugar, help you get into ketosis more effectively, and help you burn fat much more effectively.
Well, you're definitely touching on some great points. I mean, what it comes down to is that a ketogenic diet can be a great tool, but if these other things are popping up, these are the foundations. If you're too stressed or if you're not getting enough sleep, enough quality sleep in the right environment, then a ketogenic diet may just be adding fuel to the fire. So I think giving it a trial, as we indicated earlier, is a good way to go. But if you know that you're stressed, start to implement those types of techniques that are taught in other parts of this project, and then start to implement some of the things if you're having difficulty sleeping that Dr. Jockers just mentioned. I mean, it's really difficult to get and optimize your sleep environment initially, but once you do, oh my gosh, will it make changes in your life?
You have to specifically create that room, and it's hard to keep it like that all the time, and especially when you're traveling too. If you're in a hotel room, you can't always control the environment around you. So just bringing your sleep mask, I noticed huge changes when I started utilizing that.
Well, Dr. Jockers, I really appreciate your time, your expertise, your willingness to share all of this information so that we can all help each other become better versions of ourselves, that we can reach our full potential, that we can reach these goals of weight loss, whether it be for aesthetic purposes or so that we can have and live a much longer life. So thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely, Rudy. You're so welcome, and I'm just so excited for this online summit. You're really going to help a lot of people through this program.
Well, I really appreciate that. We are going to help a lot of people, and that is the collective we. Every single person listening to this, when they start to get motivated, when they start to take action, they're going to help family members and friends, and then all of the experts, including you, Dr. Jockers. So once again, I really appreciate your time. And thank you. I'm so thankful and appreciative of you for taking the time out of your busy day to listen to this life-changing and life-saving information. Now that you know and understand more about a ketogenic diet or a low-carbohydrate, high-fat diet, begin this process now. Start making these changes. Start adding in some healthy fats. Start reducing some of those processed carbohydrates. And really begin this process, because I promise you will begin to see changes. And if it's not in your weight, you're going to see it in your energy, in your focus, in your mental capabilities. It is going to be an amazing experience for you. But in order to do this, in order to address all of the things that could be popping up as underlying causes, I highly encourage you to put more tools into your hero tool belt by bringing this information home with you. Click the link below and purchase this project with all of the amazing free gifts that we're giving away. We are all about over-delivering, just as Dr. Jockers did in this interview, because we want you to succeed. We want you to forget the term weight loss and forget it forever. Share this information with your friends, your family, your loved ones, so that we all can reach our full potential. This is your host, Dr. Rudy Mueller, saying live happy, live healthy, and affect others positively. Thank you for listening.